August the 17th. If you haven't done so already, could you please type your name into the chat or send it to me directly? That's the way that we take attendance in these virtual meetings. The meeting is recorded because we have a school YouTube channel, and I will make sure, hopefully within 24 hours, to upload this content so that anybody who's not available to log on with us live still has access to the information. There's also going to be a 5 p.m. meeting tonight for any folks who are not available at 10 a.m. So we're going to dive right in. Just before I get started, one more note is I sort of have half of an eye on the chat, but I'm not going to answer questions. If it's a burning question, please come off mute and ask in the moment. But as always, there's going to be significant time at the second half of this meeting for question, answer, and discussion. So here's our agenda for this morning. The big topic of conversation is what school opening is going to look like in a few very short weeks. This presentation is sprinkled with some announcements, just generally what to expect. And then, as I just said, we always have a really discussion at the end, and I am able to provide any answers that I can. So let's jump right in. We're going to start off with school opening. So the first thing that I do want to share, and I have a letter that's going to be going out either later today or tomorrow morning, is that we're really excited to welcome some new team members to the Henry team. I don't have photographs of everybody, but I just quickly cut and paste some photographs that I do have. The first person who I'm excited to introduce is our new 6th and 7th grade math teacher. Her name is Miss Taquino. She's going by Miss T, and she is going to be homeroom 6T. So she is the grade partner for Miss Worship. She's an experienced educator coming from a local charter school, and is a new teacher to the School District of Philadelphia, but a veteran teacher. You will learn more about her in the introductory letter I'm going to be sending out shortly. Secondly, we have a new assistant principal at CW Henry School, and I believe, Mr. Wilson, if you are on the line, would you like to come off and say hi to the group?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Henry community. My name is Mr. Wilson, the proud new assistant principal for Henry Elementary School. So happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to serve this year.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. And you'll learn more about Mr. Wilson in the letter that I'm sending out, but he is a veteran educator he's worked at a number of schools in the School District of Philadelphia. And we are so grateful to have him here at Henry. And then the last photograph that I have to share with you this morning, where is it? There it is we have a new kindergarten teacher who's joining our group. So this is Miss Blunt. She is coming to us also from a charter school. She's a new teacher to the district, but not a new teacher. And the reason why we're adding another kindergarten teacher to our group is that Miss Shell, Montez Price Shell, is taking a 1-year sabbatical. So she will be returning to Henry, but for the next 12 months, she's on sabbatical. So her sabbatical just started, and Miss Blunt has been hired in the kindergarten spot while she is no longer here. So Miss Blunt will be working side by side with Miss DiMartino. We also have a new school counselor. I'm sorry, I don't have a photograph of her yet to share, but her name is Jessica Austin. So if you remember at the end of the year last year, if you were with us, Mr. Brogan has moved on into a high school counseling position. We were really sad to see him go, but it's been a goal of his for a number of years to work in a high school. So we have a new school counselor who is not new to the School District of Philadelphia. She's worked actually at other schools in this area, and she is joining our team. So her name is Miss Austin, and you can look forward to her more formal introduction coming soon. All right. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to do my best to drop some links into the chat if you'd like to follow along. The first thing that we're going to talk about is, oh no, sorry. One moment. I was trying to put it right there in the chat. One second. Let me reshare my screen. Zoom, right? Gotta love it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about are just some really basic information about school opening. Much of this information is found on the school district's landing page, which they're calling Ring the Bell. So hopefully this is not new information to anybody, but the district is gearing up for a full 5-day of school per week return for students in grades K to 8. So if you're with us last year, cohort was one of the most frequently used words in 2021. We no longer have cohort A and cohort B. We are also at this point in time not moving forward with a hybrid schooling model. So it is a full 5 days per week in person opening for all kids at Henry School. Our staff is returning this upcoming Monday, August the 23rd, and there are 6 days when teachers and other staff members will be here to prepare. So if you live in the area, you'll be seeing a lot of cars and familiar faces on Carpenter Lane. The first day for kids is Tuesday, August the 31st. It's important to know that for our kindergarten students, our youngest learners, the district has moved forward with 5 days of half days at the beginning of the school year. So that kicks off on the first day of school, August the 31st. So it goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, September 3rd. We don't have school on Monday the 6th for Labor Day or Tuesday the 7th for a Jewish holiday. And kindergartners will have one final half day on September the 8th. The first day of full school is going to be the 9th of September for kindergarten. And then last but not least, I did send a letter earlier in the summer, a couple weeks ago, I believe, about our school day start time. Since I've sent that letter, the district has revised our start time one more time. So you're getting the first official announcement of that right here. The time that I announced was 9 o'clock. And right after I announced it, they bumped it back. So our official school day at CW Henry School runs from 8:45 in the morning. That is when school begins. And we are going to wrap up dismissal at 3:24. All of this information will be coming to you in a more formal letter. So you don't have to screenshot these slides or write it down. Don't worry, you will also be getting it. But we're just going to review these topics most broadly right now.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you just tell us what the half-day schedule is in terms of hours?
You're going to start at 8:45. And normally in a regular school schedule, sorry, I'm just remembering, we used to wrap up at 12:09. So it's going to be 15 minutes later than that. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make sure to put that in writing. Thanks for asking that question. Can you do me a favor and just type that in the chat so I don't forget to add that info?
Yes.
Thanks so much. Okay, so these are just some general health and safety measures. All of this information is available on the Ring the Bell website, but I wanted to talk specifically about what it looks like at CW Henry School. First of all, masks are required for all staff members, all students, and all visitors in the Henry building, regardless of vaccination status. That is very firm. Some of the health and safety measures that we've taken that continue to be in place is that for our water fountains, the bubbler head where students used to push the button and drink from the fountain are turned off, right? We don't want situations where children can exchange saliva, but they do have buttons that once you put a bottle underneath it, you can fill up a cup or a water bottle. Those are still turned on. So we do have some water bottles at school. We have lots of cups for students to use, but if you'd like to have your child have a specific water bottle, that's a great thing to have ready on the first day. This is one addition since when we wrapped up the school year last year. All CW Henry classrooms, offices, and shared spaces such as the cafeteria and the gym are equipped with air purifiers that were purchased by the School District of Philadelphia. So this is wonderful. This is an improvement from where we ended the school year last year. We did not have air purifiers in all of our classrooms. If you were with me last year, we spent a lot of time talking about the air balancing reports and the maximum occupancy. And at that time, the district had purchased purifiers only for rooms that had failed air balancing reports. We now have them in every classroom. We continue to have hand sanitation stations in classrooms and throughout the building. So we have a large amount of PPE that has been provided by the School District of Philadelphia and continues to be replenished. So that was a frequently asked question that families have emailed me or messaged me about. Do we need to buy hand sanitizer? Do we need to buy Clorox wipes? These things are expensive and they're difficult to obtain. The answer is no, we have them at school. Of course, I'm having PTSD saying this, but I will continue to notify all families and members of our school community if we do have instances of positive cases at CW. So we did have that happen 4, if not 5 times in the spring. There is a general notification letter that I always email out, as well as send it on remind. And if your child or you, if you were in the building, anybody and a staff member who's been directly impacted, meaning they were in direct contact with the individual who tested positive for COVID, they would receive a different level of notification. It would be a phone call that comes directly from the health department and the school district's either student health or employee health services. And then finally, with COVID testing, weekly employee COVID testing will continue through the school year. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Wilson and I participated in required professional development for school administrators. It was at another school in the school district of Philadelphia. We were all tested when we were brought together. So that's going to continue. We'll have a day when a third-party vendor comes to our building and tests all employees, regardless of vaccination status. One shift from last year is that students, if you remember, there were COVID consent forms that families had to send in if they wanted their child returning for hybrid schooling, and all children were tested at least one time. Currently, at this time, it may change, but the school district is not moving forward with what we call assurance testing. So just random testing of students who are not showing symptoms. They've received a lot of feedback around that, so maybe there will be some shifts, but at this time, we are not testing all students returning to the building. However, any child or staff member that exhibits any COVID-like symptoms while in the CW Henry School building will be tested by our school nurse, Nurse Larson. Parent consent is required in order for your child to be COVID tested at school. I haven't received the consent form yet, but my assumption is that it will be a Google form similar to last year, as well as a paper copy that you could fill out. I see a couple of questions in the chat. Jess, yeah, definitely we can share information about the hand sanitizer fluid. That's easy. We can just take a picture and share it out. The question about the spring donations for the purifiers is a little bit of a lengthier answer. The short version of it is that the money hasn't been spent yet. But because the purifiers were purchased by the district, it will be repurposed with the permission of everybody who donated. There's more to come on that. I see a couple of questions about purifiers. I'm going to just admit I'm not an expert on them, but I can try to find the answers and share that info with the community. Rachel, great question about the symptoms that require testing. Another area that I'm not an expert at, but I will tell you that the district has a new individual who's working in their Office of Health. Her name is Dr. Mercedes Gutierrez. I don't want to misquote what her title is, but she has worked hand in hand with Dr. Barbara Clock, who was the chief medical advisor for the district last year. Last week, principals were in a town hall with Dr. Gutierrez, and she was talking about the differences between the symptoms that students would have to exhibit last year in order to be characterized as having COVID-like symptoms and what it is now. She was talking about how last year students would have to exhibit 2 symptoms in order to be tested at school, and this year they're only necessary that they exhibit 1 symptom. It's probably in a document somewhere that I'll locate and share with the school community. I don't have it memorized. All right, I'm going to get to the rest of the questions in a minute. I'm just going to continue moving on. So Chromebooks, let me type this link in the chat. If you were with us last year, this link has not changed. philatsd.org/Chromebooks. We're going to continue to have a 1-to-1 ratio for students and Chromebooks this school year. So if you are a new student at CW Henry or a kindergarten student at CW Henry School, you will receive your Chromebook the week of August 31st. You don't need to go anywhere to pick it up. You don't need to go to a tech center. They're going to be delivered here. We are going to be using Chromebooks somewhat flexibly this year. So we're no longer in a hybrid learning model. So kids don't need to take them home in order to be logging on to interact with their teacher. That said, they are a crucial tool that's used to support learning. And we used Chromebooks way before COVID-19 and the pandemic. So when teachers return to school next week, we're going to be doing some work around what is our Chromebook use going to look like this year. Obviously, kids are not going to be logged onto Zoom for hours upon hours in order to access instruction, but we still do use Chromebooks in ways that's really intentional and purposeful. There may be instances, depending on your child's grade level, the teacher, the unit of instruction that they're working on, there may be times where they need to take it home. And there may be a significant amount of time where they live at school. There's more info to come on that. If you have your child's Chromebook and there's an issue with it, such as a charger that's not working, a screen that's cracked, keys that are falling off the keyboard, I strongly recommend, if you can do so, to visit a tech support center before the first day of school. The lines will be long once school starts. The closest tech support center to us is at King High School. It's open daily and they have after school hours on Wednesdays. We are going to be having a digital service fellow who supports us and supports Ms. Pinnell, our tech teacher, with troubleshooting any issues. But if you'd like to keep it, try to handle it as soon as possible, and you're having an issue, I strongly suggest that you visit a tech center. If your child, hey, Mr. Airy, I just see your question. If your child is not a new student and never received a Henry Chromebook, we have it here at school. No action is necessary on your part. It's going to be in your child's classroom when they come on the first day. Our Chromebooks are registered for each student. So if you have a Chromebook and you flip it upside down, or you look, maybe on some models it's on the top, there's a little sticker with a number of different codes, and the codes are registered to the student. And so that's why we don't exchange Chromebooks in school. We don't trade them out with a friend. It's registered specifically to your child. Moving right along, and another hot topic of conversation is our CW Henry, what I am now calling uniform/dress code. I just put it into the chat. So this is the document that I uploaded to the Henry website a couple weeks ago. It has not changed since that time. Last year, when school closed, the school district of Philadelphia suspended uniforms across the district. They said, when we come back in a hybrid model, come as you are. And so for the most part, that is the mentality that we are continuing at CW Henry School. It is a requirement of the school district of Philadelphia that all schools have a uniform, which is why we are calling it a uniform/dress code. And there's some parts of our uniform historically that we do really, really love. I personally love the CW Henry t-shirt. We love our swag. That is all still encouraged. And there's some families who feel really strongly that they loved our uniform as well. So if you want your child to come to school in our official shirt color of navy blue, please do whatever makes you happy. But what's most important to me as the school leader is that all students are following the dress code. And then additionally, that uniforms are never a barrier or a hardship for any family. So I do believe that our dress code is fairly inclusive and broad. If you have any specific questions about what it means for your child, send me a private message or drop it in the chat. We will have a Spirit Wear sale, which is the online store where we're going to have a new CW Henry t-shirt. I'm in the process of just finalizing what the design and the items will be for this year. And we have a targeted Spirit Wear sale date of the first week of school. So more info to come on that. Janet, I see your question about Chromebooks. Great. The question was, will Chromebooks have more privacy protection than they did in previous years? YouTube, TikTok, etc. The short answer to that is yes. I'm hoping that it is up and running on the first day of school, but the district has rolled out much stricter guidelines and monitoring software that will be installed on all Chromebooks throughout the school district. I see another question in the chat about the dress code. Yes, so is anything acceptable as long as the children are wearing sneakers? For gym, it's definitely important that children are wearing clothes that they can move around in. So whether that's a sweatpant, whether that's shorts, whether that's athletic leggings, whatever you're comfortable sending your child to school in for gym is great for us in terms of pant bottoms. Sneakers are absolutely required, and you'll see that on the dress code. We do not permit, for safety reasons, open-toed shoes or shoes that don't have a strap in the back, such as a clog or a croc with the little back piece down. It's just not safe. A kid could twist their ankle much more easily. So please send your child to school in sneakers. I will get to the rest of the questions in a moment. So the next broad topic is around arrival and dismissal. I will definitely be sending a letter with more specific information about our procedures, but for now, if you return to Henry in the springtime, we're going to follow a procedure that looks very similar. Classes will have the doors that they are assigned to enter to the building in the morning and exit in the afternoon. At this point, it does not feel like the safest or the smartest thing to do to voluntarily bring hundreds of people together every morning on the upper schoolyard. That said, it's absolutely a wonderful part of our community. So when COVID transmission rates decline, it's going to be a priority to resume our morning announcements in the upper schoolyard. But right now, it doesn't feel worth the risk. Thank you, Janet, for answering that question. Usually our younger students wear their gym clothes to school and kind of wear it all day. Sometimes for our older students, we do have a locker room where they can change, but usually kids wear their gym clothes to school. This slide is important for any parent of a 7th or 8th grade student who receives a TransPass. So SEPTA is phasing out their weekly flexible TransPass cards, and they're replacing it with something that they're calling the Student Fare Card. This is only for students in grades 7 and 8 who are eligible for, or last year would have been eligible for a TransPass. You are eligible if you live more than 1.5 miles from CW Henry School. If that is your family and your child, he or she will receive their Student Fare Card the first week of school. And SEPTA is free for all kids on Tuesday, August the 31st. So there should be no barriers to get to school. We have I'm not the expert on school transportation, but we have a number of staff members at Henry who do that for us. So if your child has an IEP and they take a yellow school bus per their IEP, our school counselor is the one who really sets that up and makes sure everything is squared away with the bus route and the pickup times. So last year that was Mr. Brogan. This year it will be our new counselor, Ms. Austin. And then a member of our support staff, Ms. Stephanie, is the one who always hands out TransPasses. It'll now be Student Fare Cards and supervises our busing on Carpenter Lane. Zoe, I saw your message. Thank you. I'll follow up with you about that. Okay, here's some new information. We're hosting some open houses. So I wanted to start with our older students. Each year during our summer professional development for teachers, we always have what we call an upper school orientation. And this year we've expanded it because our 7th graders didn't have a chance to participate in the orientation last year. And quite frankly, our rising 8th graders haven't been in the building for a really long time. We're inviting all upper school students to our orientation. This will be shared with families via Remind, but it's going to be next Thursday and next Friday. We're doing 2 groups of orientation in order to mitigate the crowd size. Due to the School District of Philadelphia's COVID restrictions, there are visitor policies in place. Because of this, our orientation is only open for kids. I know it's a little bit disappointing, but the way that we're going to get around that is that we will offer live streaming for families so they can be a part of the presentation virtually via Zoom. When kids come to the orientation, they get a chance to meet their teachers. They get a chance to hear a little bit about what the programming looks like in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They walk up to the 2nd floor for the upper school. They locate their locker. They see their classroom. So as much as possible, we'll make sure that parents can participate via Zoom. But when we have kids in the auditorium, we're going to be socially distancing, and it's students only. One other thing about this, it also includes Mrs. Grant's class, our autistic support class for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I just need to add them. I think it's going to be on both days, but to pick a day for their class. If you have any questions about these open houses, you can feel free to shoot me a message. And then finally, we're going to be having an open house for the rest of the school, grades K to 5. And this is going to take place outside on our upper and lower schoolyards. It's also going to be next Friday, August the 27th, slightly after our upper school orientation starts inside for kids. This is an open house because it's outside. It's open to family members as well as students. Masks are required for all guests, regardless of vaccination status. And it's going to just be a fun, casual time where if you want to come and briefly meet your child's teacher before the first day, you can. If your child wants to link up and see a friend they haven't seen all summer, that can be coordinated. We'll be right in front of the playground. And then additionally, if you'd like to drop off any school supplies, it is definitely not required, but we will have a station where you can drop off bags of school supplies if you would like to do that. I see a couple of questions in the chat about the upper school. Renee, no, you do not need to provide a lock for your locker. They have locks built in. And Helen, if you don't, I uploaded all of the class assignments onto the Google Classrooms at the end of the year. If you don't have access to it, I can definitely share it at the end of this meeting. Okay, and then last but not least, this is just some random frequently asked questions that I've gotten a couple times over the summer. Oh, Helen, there's your question. How can I find out what class my child is in? If you are a new family to CW Henry Schools, meaning you weren't on our Google Classrooms last year, you can definitely call our main office. Miss Lou is there answering the phone during school hours. She can always tell you. If you are a returning family and you still have access to your child's Google Classroom, you could log on and see it. I also believe you can access that information through the parent portal. If all else fails, email me or call the main office. Another frequently asked question is, what supplies do we need? If you log on to the Henry website, I've made sure that all of the supplies lists are on the right-hand side. There's the Henry website, and we just have one lengthy Google Doc, K to 8. The one disclaimer I like to give out about supplies is that if purchasing school supplies creates a hardship for you or your family, please just communicate that to me privately and directly, and we'll make sure that you have everything that you need. Huge frequently asked question. What are our lunchtime procedures going to look like? Well, there's going to be a combination approach to lunch. So we are going to have some classes that will eat in their classrooms. The majority of kids, but not all, will continue to eat in the cafeteria. And we're also going to begin cycling some students in staggered groups to eat outside on the lower schoolyard. The School District of Philadelphia, in alignment with CDC guidelines, relaxed the social distancing requirement. Last year, when we closed school, kids had to be 6 feet apart. At this point, it's a recommendation of 3 feet, but while students are removing their masks and eating, it's a requirement of a minimum of 3 feet. So what Mr. Wilson and I have done in the past week or so is scoped out the cafeteria, created seating charts, just to be as realistic and safe as possible to see how many kids can eat in the cafeteria. And we're going to supplement it with students who are eating outside, cycling to eat outside and cycling to eat in their classrooms. Excuse me. We will have 3 lunch periods as we've had in the past. All students will continue to have half of their lunch period being a recess time, a minimum of 20 minutes, and half of the lunch period as an eating time. All right, so I see a couple of questions in the chat. Andrea, it's not finalized, but I'm fairly sure that the kindergartners are going to eat in their classrooms. I'm going to be announcing and sharing information about which classes will eat in the cafeteria later on, not today. And if it's raining outside, we will not be eating outside. If it's snowing outside, if it's uncomfortably cold outside, we won't be doing it, which is why we have other spaces throughout the building where kids can eat, such as the auditorium, such as the gym, if gym classes aren't going on. Those are what we call our inclement weather plans. Same thing if kids are not able to play outside, we have, because of rain or snow, we have a couple spaces throughout the building where we separate kids into groups so that they can get some physical activity in a way that's safe. Davida, I see a great question about what the recess mask policy is. For now, I'll give you two answers. The district stance is that everyone has to wear masks inside, and outdoors masks are optional if you're able to sustain a minimum of 3 feet apart. I'll tell you, as someone who spends a lot of time at recess, our kids are not always 3 feet apart. So I'm not fully comfortable with making a blanket statement that we don't wear masks at recess. There's going to be flexibility to remove a mask if you are playing by yourself or spread out. But let's say you're playing a game of tag, or you're climbing on the monkey bars, or you're spinning on the spinny top that all the kids love to spin on. You will need to wear a mask because at those times you'll be closer than 3 feet together. Okay, so a bunch of questions have already come into the chat. The first thing I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen. I see a couple virtual hands, and then if you have a question, feel free to raise a hand or drop it in the chat. Give me 1 second. Hey, Rachel, I saw your hand first. You want to come off mute?
Yeah, I mean, I think I, like many other parents, are concerned about lunch. And I agree with CDC that the kids need to be in school more than they need to distance. But I'm just sort of like wondering what creative things we can do in that like 3 feet of distance across a table without masks is going to be a good way for kids to transmit COVID back and forth. It's like one question that I had was, if there's staffing issues, can parents volunteer to be other eyes so that we can sort of spread kids out more?
Right now, the school district of Philadelphia is not permitting volunteers in school buildings
Okay.
as of last week.
Will kids stay? I mean, how many groups of children, how many classes will be in the cafeteria at once?
Sure. So we have 12 tables in the cafeteria, 12 long tables. We have a couple smaller tables. What we've done in the past is, it depends on how many classes per grade level there are. So for example, K-2 has one lunch period. And so all of our classes either have all of our grades either have 2 classes or 3 classes. So normally it's anywhere from 4 or 5 classes in the lunchroom at a time. It just really fluctuates because we have some classes where there's under 20 kids, and then we have another class where there's 32 kids. So it's all of those variables where it's very much about number crunching, and it's also about thinking about kids' body sizes. Like 30 8th graders looks very different than 30 kindergartners. Which is why we're going to be flexible with having at least 2 classes for each lunch period, eat outside. So that's a way to remove anywhere from like 30 to 40 kids from the cafeteria space. But again, it's truly a matter of staffing too.
Okay. I guess my next question is, if there's a positive case, in a child that eats 1 table over from my kid, will we be notified to like make decisions accordingly?
Great question. So what I can tell you is that we're going to have seating charts for lunches. So that is going to give us, really bluntly, like a degree of control that we didn't have last year. It's not going to be a question of, oh, Maggie's in class 102 and who was she sitting next to? Like, we'll know exactly where she was sitting and who was next to her and next to her. So when it comes to notifying families of positive cases, it's never a decision that I make. I just go through the guidance that's provided by the district.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Who's the next? Hey, Meg, I see you have a question too.
Hi, yeah, I had put this in the chat, but it might be easier to just say. With the change in drop-off time, I know, families are planning on how to get to work on time, etc. In the past, with the 8:30 drop-off, there was an adult outside at like 8:15, but that one adult could cover the whole, schoolyard since everybody was meeting in the same place. And now that there's going to be multiple entrances, I'm just wondering, at what time can students be dropped off safely with an adult? Do they go inside? Are there going to be adults at different doors? So that's just the question.
Great question. There's definitely going to be an adult stationed at every single door. let me get back to you on the official time where a kid could be dropped off such that they would be supervised. I'll be honest in saying I'm not fully comfortable with just saying to families, yeah, put your kid in the recess yard at 8:15, just because it becomes essentially another recess period for us to supervise before school starts. And I want to make sure that we're in a place where everybody is safe, right? But I'm less concerned about how it's going to impact arrival, meaning like having people to walk kids to doors. It's more so around making sure that parents have before care options. So what I can tell you is that last week, 2 weeks ago, when Mr. Wilson and I were at our leadership convening, the district, I know behind the scenes, is trying to support schools in before and after school care. So there's a possibility that we will have additional funding so that I will have the ability to pay people before school to watch kids and support families in that way. But I haven't seen those dollars yet, but I heard that they're coming. So I'll make sure to share that information as soon as possible. The one thing I can say is that we do have a number of kids who take a variety of van services or before or after school care services. What we have, members of our team have done in the past week is contacted each of those agencies and asked for information so that we're able to push that out to the larger school community, because we're still moving forward with before care service, outside before care service and van services. So that'll be coming as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Rebecca, what's your question?
Hi. I also am traumatized thinking about the positive letters coming home again. Not looking forward to that, but along those lines, I had a couple questions about positive cases and quarantining policies. Can you verify whether if there's a positive case in our child's classroom, if the whole class will be notified of that? And or is it, because I know that the idea of close contacts isn't clearly defined, if it's the person they were sitting next to, or is it the entire class that would be notified?
I can tell you what we did last year, and I'll tell you where the gray area is for me right now. So last year, the School District of Philadelphia went what they called above and beyond PDPH, or Philadelphia Department of Public Health's guidance. And anytime where we had a child or a staff member test positive in a classroom, and it happened a handful of times, by default, the entire cohort of students had to quarantine. The only exception to that is that if the adult was vaccinated, they did not need to quarantine. The school district has not clearly stated if they're going to move forward with that practice, right? So I can tell you that if a child tests positive, or an individual, adult or child, tests positive in your child's classroom, you absolutely will be notified with the language of Kate in class 218. To the parent of Kate in class 218, an individual in class 218 tested positive. I don't know for sure if it's going to be a default class quarantine. They haven't said that yet.
Okay. It looks like the Department of Health is recommending that now, that I saw that they paused the test to stay thing because of the rising caseload. So maybe we'll hear something from the district. But my other question.
I'm sorry, at the end of last year, and I'd need to check, and there might be parents on this call who know the answer to this, but before it was a 14-day quarantine, I know it was taken down to a 10-day quarantine, and I would just need to double check what it is currently.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, it's 10 days or 7 days if they test negative. I also have to know this for my work since I work with early childhood programs. So my second question then is, if children are quarantining, what that will look like this year. Will there be a virtual component, or will they be given independent work to do?
That's a great question. That is on the Ring the Bell website. There is an answer that says if a child is at home quarantine, instructional programming will be provided. I need more information about what that means. My assumption would be it would look like a hybrid model, but the district hasn't come out yet to be specific about it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Amber, what is your question? Oh, you're on mute. Hold on. Hold on.
Hi.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. It's my daughter's first year. She's going to be in kindergarten. We're excited. We live very close, so sometimes I want to pick her up for lunch. Can you talk a little bit about what that will look like I don't want to disrupt things, but is there a way that that would be possible?
So that's not a practice that we currently have in place. The only exceptions or versions of that we've done with a couple of parents who are logged on right now are on days where we've had early dismissals because lunch happens right before the end of the school day. In that situation, we've said, yes, I give you permission to come and get your kid before the school day is over. But otherwise, anytime that they leave school property, it's considered an early dismissal.
Thank you.
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. Hey, Helen, I see you raising your hand. What's your question?
Yeah, so I want to follow up on the testing. If a parent does not, if a child is having symptoms and the parent does not consent to testing, is that child removed from the school, from the classroom?
Yes.
What happens with that?
So we were not in that situation last year because you had to consent to testing, but I believe what the policy is that if your child exhibits symptoms, they'll be isolated in what we call our medical waiting room. The child will then have to be picked up by a guardian, and then there's a mandatory quarantine.
Well, okay, so there's no mandatory testing outside of the building? Does the parent have to take him home and have testing, or we just presume that he's got COVID and he'll be quarantined for 6 to 7 days or something? And then will the parents be notified? Would we be notified of that?
No,
Since it's not formally determined the child has COVID.
No, you're only notified when there's a positive case. And that would be a question for the school nurse. I do believe that if you got an outside test and brought proof of the results, that they would honor those results, but that's not a situation we've been in yet. So I can't tell you definitively. I'd have to check with student health.
Okay, but my concern would be it's like a child that has symptoms not tested. He goes in isolation, but we're not, and perhaps does have COVID, we just don't know. And parents aren't aware of it, of the parents.
That's a good point to bring up. I'll ask our nursing department about that.
Okay.
I just want to say,
Hey, Janet, yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, my 5-year-old who's starting kindergarten, there's a very good chance that if he was in school and they asked for him to take a COVID test, that he would not comply. He's very sensitive, but I'm perfectly fine with picking him up and having me or my husband take him and hold him to do a COVID test elsewhere. So I just wanted, some kids might have a really hard time, especially the younger kids in that situation. Like, we've gone to the testing facility that's at MLK High School and had my 9-year-old test it, and he just refused to participate. So we kind of were like, if she tests positive, we're going to really make him do it. But just, we know that that's going to be something that's going to come up now that he's in elementary school.
That makes sense. Thank you. Hey, Meredith, I see you have a raised hand.
Hi, yeah, I don't know. It just feels so complicated, and I know that it's changing so much. I'm trying to stay on top of what happens when people are test positive. But is there a platform where somebody from outside the school can report to you if a family member has tested positive, or someone in your, let's say you have a kid at another school and their whole group got positive COVID test, and is there a means that we can report to you other than just sending you an email that, like, hey, just want to let you know, like, we have some people in our house that are COVID positive, or is that just that's just too, like, we shouldn't do that? I don't know how much information you want from us outside of what you find out within the school grounds in terms of positive COVID.
Sure. I mean, great question. So we found ourselves in this situation, unfortunately, quite frequently last year, where maybe in a couple different scenarios, but one that played out frequently was my child's in first grade, there's a sibling in preschool, another child in my child's preschool class tested positive, so now my child needs to quarantine. Does my child at Henry also need to quarantine? So I'll tell you that every time I got a question like that, I directed it to the school nurse, Nurse Annalie, and she shared it with student health department. So it goes by whatever the PDPH and the CDC guidelines are. I don't want to misquote what it is now, but I could tell you that in May and in June, if it was that second degree of removal, it didn't require your child at Henry to quarantine if it was just an exposure. Now, of course, if it's a family member in same household, with COVID, that's a guaranteed quarantine for that child as well.
Got it. Is there a way that we can notify on a larger scale, like I don't know, just to be, hey, just want to let you know, like to the people in the classroom, or is it only like the official notification that you send to them when it actually shows a positive case in the classroom? You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, that if, let's say hypothetically it was your family, that would be a decision that you have to make. So we had a couple of situations where a kid might share at a morning meeting or community meeting, hey, my mom tested positive, or my brother or sister tested positive. That's always the kid's choice. The interesting situation I find myself in is that I'm not even supposed to technically know who it is who tested positive in the community unless they voluntarily disclose it to me. I do know because I have to coordinate the logistics around it oftentimes, but that's not even a requirement that I know.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, Ms. Smith, do you have a question?
Yes, I had dropped it in the chat, but I just wanted to ask, what if a child has seasonal allergies, which looks like, symptoms, and they're like, okay, you got to go home, your child has symptoms, and they get tested and it's a negative COVID test. Are they allowed to come right back to school, or is it they still have to be out until their symptoms clear up?
Yeah, we had this situation play out a couple times last spring when seasonal allergies were terrible. So they came right back to school. The parents sort of were able to tell us. I mean, I would say there is a degree of trust that goes into this. I don't think we have any parents at Henry who would send their child to school knowing that they might have COVID and put anyone else at risk. We actually had quite the opposite, where people are really concerned about taking care of their family, really concerned about taking care of other people's family members who said, we're worried that we might have been potentially exposed. Can we take these precautions? So as much as possible, it's about transparent and honest communication, and we're going to support you on the school level. So for example, last year was different because we had hybrid schooling, right? Now our default is not that your kid can sign on to Zoom. So we're going to have to cross some bridges that we didn't cross before. But our number one priority is keeping people safe. All right, I see a couple other questions in the chat. I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly. Helen asked if there's going to be after-school sports this year, such as EC or extracurricular. At this time, I believe that there will be, but don't quote me on that. I need to find out more. They might change the guidance. Thank you to all parents who answered other parents' questions. Hey, Linda, I saw you asked a question about inclement weather and morning drop-off. What we've always done is that grades K to 5 go into the auditorium, and grades 6, 7, and 8 go into the gymnasium. We're gonna have to see, we're gonna have to split K to 5 because that's too many kids in the auditorium, but other places that we'd be able to use would be the cafeteria. So we'll still have an inclement weather plan, definitely. If I missed your question in the chat, you can feel free to come off of mute and ask it now or retype it in the chat. Hey, Tasha, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, I have put a question in the chat asking if I'm able to send my daughter with a copy of her shot records versus the original, because it says students in band and choir will be tested regularly, and she is in that. I don't have a problem with her being tested. I just don't know how she reacts to it. So just in case, I wanted to send her vaccination in, but I don't want to give her the original.
You can definitely send a copy, but even if your child is vaccinated, they still have to participate in testing, just like if adults are vaccinated. Mm-hmm.
Oh, on the website it said not if they were vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
For choir and band.
I'd have to follow up on that then.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey, Eric, what's your question?
Hey, I was wondering, I came on late, so might have missed this earlier, but can you tell us if teachers and staff are required to be vaccinated? And if not, can you even if you can't share individuals who aren't, can you say 80% of the people who've reported to me are or aren't or whatever like that.
Sure. No, no adults are required to be vaccinated. The district continues to create opportunities where if they want to be vaccinated, they're hosting clinics, but it is not a requirement. And I think I wrote you an email about this, but I'm not allowed to disclose people's vaccination status. I mean, I only know if people voluntarily told me. I can say many people at Henry are vaccinated, but it's each person's individual choice.
Okay.
Whether or not they want to share it. Yeah. It's at this time, it's not reported to me or to the School District of Philadelphia. I only know anecdotally, it's not collect information. So we'll see. Yeah, if they move, some charter schools have moved in a different direction where it's now required or people have to, pay for their own COVID testing. The district at this point seems like they're going in a bit of a different direction because they're continuing to fund COVID testing and it's not required, but it may change. We'll see.
Thanks.
Okay. Did I see another raised hand? Yeah, hey, Sylvia.
Hi there. Just wondering, I know that you probably don't have a ton of details, but for families that are having to quarantine, is the plan to let like individual teachers really do the planning as to what kind of learning happens during that quarantine period? Or is there something more sort of centralized that you're sort of working on? I understand if you don't have a lot of details at this time, but just wondering
No,
what the
that's a great question, and really transparently, I'll just tell you that's not something the district has shared yet. I don't know. They haven't, we have all of the equipment in our building to continue with hybrid learning if we get to a point where we need to do it again, meaning all the document cameras, all the speakers, all the microphones, but they have not released guidance on what the expectation is. My gut tells me it'll probably fall on teachers, but we'll see what happens. It would be great if there was additional support. Yeah, great question. I'm just looking to see if I missed any other questions in the chat. The one thing that I didn't mention in the slideshow, and I'll add this in for the earlier, is the 5 p.m. meeting, is that we are going to continue having breakfast at Henry. Breakfast is free of cost and available for all kids. This previous school year, we held breakfast in the classroom during our morning meeting time, and we're going to continue to do that moving forward. So 2 years ago, we used to open the cafeteria up 20 minutes before school started to welcome kids in for breakfast. We're not doing that. It's going to be more controlled and structured in classrooms, and it's optional. It's not required.
What about lunch? Are they going to box the lunches up, Ms. Davis, or because I know we don't do buffet type stuff anymore, so would they get lunch boxes?
Yeah, so the lunches, yeah, we don't have like a buffet bar or anything like that. They are all prepared by our kitchen staff, and I wouldn't say that they're pretty much prepackaged, right? Like there'll be a piece of fruit, but they're in paper, and they have a plastic wrap top on it. They're all pre-sealed and heated. So there's no spooning or serving or anything like that. It's all sealed and packaged. Breakfast time is going to be when school starts, so starting at 8:45. And I see a question from Ms. Levitt about rodent control. Since eating is not centralized, we have rodent control going on in our building year round. So we have exterminators who come. We don't have mice or things like that, but the water bugs, the occasional cockroach, we are exterminated year round, and that will continue.
Ms. Davis, there was a question earlier in the chat about choir and singing. And I don't know what the current guidance is on singing, but has there been any news on whether there will be choir and group singing?
Yeah, so the guidance that is on the School District of Philadelphia's website that I just need a little bit of clarification on is that there will be instrumental music and there will be choir. What I need clarification on is to make sure that they also mean that for elementary schools and not just high schools. So it says children who participate in instrumental music and choir will participate in, I believe it's 2 COVID tests a week. Don't quote me, I need to check. But I just want to make sure that they're also thinking about our youngest students, because not every school like Henry has a choir for our littlest ones or instruments for our littlest kids. But yeah, we really want to be able to do it as long as we can do it safely. I see another question from Monique around chess club. At this time, I don't have another staff member to run chess club, but if I have the interest of a staff member, we will definitely move forward with it. Bridget, I see your question asking if kids will need to bring their Chromebooks. Yes, is the short answer. If your child's book bag is looking quite heavy on the first day of school, I'd say don't worry about it, bring it in the first week, or when you hear communication from your child's teacher about how often they will need it. Okay, well, it's been about an hour. If you have questions about instrumental music, you can send me an email. I'll be quite transparent in saying that hasn't been where I've devoted my brain power recently, but it's definitely on the list of things to figure out a little bit more. So my email address is in the chat. It is also on our website. Later this week, I'm going to be updating our website with the contact information and the new teaching assignments for some of our staff members. Still, last year's staff is on the website. And then there's going to be another family forum at 5 o'clock tonight. So if a question comes to you, shoot me an email, log on for the second half later tonight if you'd like. And please stay tuned for more information to come. Renee, you can definitely drop supplies off little by little. We're going to have an open house next Friday. You can come at that time if that works for you. If not, call our main office to coordinate. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for taking the time this morning, and stay healthy and safe, and reach out if you need anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.